to eulogize the late Professor Ngungi wa Thiong'o. Ngungi wa Thiong'o demonstrates defiance, first in terms of name. He had the courage to drop what was called his Christian name. Secondly, the idea of writing in vernacular, which at the time many people frowned upon. Mr. Speaker, Ngungi wa Thiong'o shaped the literary thinking of virtually every other person living right now, including those who are older than him, but definitely those who are younger than him. And many of us have become what we are because we started reading Ngungi wa Thiong'o from primary school. Ngungi, unfortunately, remains one of those whose intellect may not have been shared in his later life because of political intolerance. And there's a long list of his contemporaries who had to flee the country at the time, including the late Professor Ali Mazrui, including those who are living even now, like Professor Shadrach Guto in South Africa, and many others. I think in his life is a lesson that we must have some level of political tolerance, even of those with whom we do not agree. Because a lot of times, we then have them benefit others. These are giants who ended up benefit others in other countries. Mr. Speaker, even though Ngungi wa Thiong'o may not have won the Nobel Peace Prize, Ngungi wa Thiong'o remains a towering giant in East Africa, in Africa, and in the world, like no other. Mr. Speaker, I think that what we should do is to name something serious in this country in honor of Ngungi wa Thiong'o, not just to name everything after politicians. This is somebody who deserves to be remembered.
Omboko Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also take this time to eulogize Ngungi wa Thiong'o, who was a great writer who influenced many of the readers of the time and the children. And as young people would compete on how many books of Ngungi and other writers you would have read during that particular time. But I think what I find quite strong about Ngungi was that he had to compete with very good writers from West Africa, because in that particular time of the 80s and 70s, the West African writers were doing very well, the likes of Chinua Achebe, the likes of Lechi Amadi with the Concubine, and Aldo and others. But Ngungi came out very strongly from the East African region to also compete very competitively with the West African writers, and he was a celebrity for the East African people. And therefore, I think this was one of the greatest. But one other thing I find very strong about him was the fact that he wrote about class struggles at a time when nobody wanted to tolerate the politics of class struggle, which remains with us today. And partly that's why he was imprisoned and then fled the country to go out.
That is in the Petals of Blood.
Petals of Blood. Thank you. You are a master. Thank you. In the Petals of Blood, he tries to bring out that very confidently. And I think we should have more tolerance in our times to literal word and those who are writing. So when I see a place like the Shackles of Blood get trouble, I just blame those who are invading the space of academics and are not teachers. If we allow teachers to do these things without much of the competition and blocking, would really improve our literal world. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Rachel Nyamai.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to eulogize our son, the son of the world, a linguist, a creative, and a gift to this country. Honorable Speaker, I would like to go direct to the family that the Honorable Ngungi wa Thiong'o has left for us. I could not move my eyes from the screen, Honorable Speaker, watching the children of Ngungi wa Thiong'o. He has left us children who are grounded, children that he must have taught and given the right way to follow. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a lesson that we need to pick as a house, that we need to know that no matter how busy we are, no matter how many parts of the world we go to, at the end of the day, it's family. Honorable Speaker, about patriotism, Honorable Speaker, he traveled to so many parts of the world and he was not happy with the situation at home at times. But he remained patriotic to our country, making sure that he wrote books that showed love for this country. Honorable Speaker, I would like to also point out that we have so much to learn from him. And I would like to thank you very much for your communication or the statement you made on that day, that we did not see his face in all our dailies, Honorable Speaker. And we need to urge our media houses to be more patriotic and to love Kenyans like the late Ngungi wa Thiong'o. Honorable Speaker, I would like also to ask the House that the children that Ngungi wa Thiong'o has left for us has shown us that we need to rethink, Mr. Speaker, about family planning, Honorable Speaker. We needed human power together with the land we have. And this is a debate that I think we must have one day to think of whether we should have been encouraged by our colonialists to have only 2 children.
Thank you, Morugara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me also join the rest of the House and Kenyans in eulogizing one great man of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I commend you that on the day after he passed on, you actually took time to inform the media that instead of writing headlines of non-issues, we should have had a headline with the late Professor Ngungi wa Thiong'o as the one to be remembered. Actually, the following day it happened, and that was extremely good because Kenyans were able to recollect the lives and times of the late Professor Ngungi wa Thiong'o. It's always important to remember when he left the school, the Alliance High School, went to Makerere University for his studies that time, where he met the late Mwai Kibaki, who was supposed to be his lecturer. But instead, Kibaki advised him to do literature or Bachelor of Arts in English, as it was called that time, because he was not very good in economics, but he was extremely good in literature, in writing the written word, and he had the power of the gab. What we encourage our learners today, and especially those who are in school, it's not just to read the works of the late Ngungi wa Thiong'o, but to take a cue from him. Take time to learn writing skills so that after Ngungi wa Thiong'o, we are able to produce many more Ngungi wa Thiong'os who will tower Africa in the likes of Chinua Achebe and the rest in writing. Therefore, today, we eulogize a great man of the Republic of Kenya, the late Ngungi wa Thiong'o, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you very much.
Mele Odhiambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on my behalf and on behalf of the people of Suba North, we bring our message of condolences to the family of Ngungi wa Thiong'o and even to Kenya as a whole, because this is a loss to Kenya as a country. Mr. Speaker, when I was a young girl, I used to work at my uncle's bookshop. And even though I was very young, I would still struggle to read the difficult English. So just like you, I think I probably read all of them, even though I didn't understand many of them. But Mr. Speaker, one of the things that stood out for me is that I want to comment about is the river between. And Mr. Speaker, you look at the river between, you look at the influence of the British colonization through the eyes of Muthoni. Mr. Speaker, I want to specifically single out the way he dealt with the issue of feminism. Majority of the characters in that book are women that he exalts, and he shows them as fighting tyranny and exploitation. Mr. Speaker, he sees women as victims of African society and patriarchal system. And to liberate themselves, they endeavored to shatter the patriarchal obstacles and bring about change. Mr. Speaker, I would want to say that he was way ahead of time. There are some of the issues that we are now talking about, and we are giving name to, for instance, intersectionality. But he already dealt with issues that converge and bring women down, like the intersectionality of gender, race, and even ethnicity. And so, with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for giving me this
Member
opportunity.
for Limuru.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance to eulogize one of our own, Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o. As I stand, Honorable Speaker, I speak of a man who I knew for the longest time in my life. I witnessed him writing the books, some of them that people have mentioned, but I have also witnessed a journey for him when he was being persecuted. I was there delivering a book written by Steve Biko to him in detention. I was at the University of Nairobi when we were told to remove all his books after detention, and I saw him off the first time he led out of this country. But Honorable Speaker, this is one person who was very good for the rest of the world, but it looks like there was a plan to make sure that Ngugi will never have a peace in his own country. We know that he was denied to teach at the University of Nairobi. He was not allowed to go back to Kameredo to continue with his theater works. And above all, the system that didn't want him to be in Nairobi, didn't want him to be in Kenya, continued to persecute even the family to a point where Ngugi had to part a lot with the rest of the family. And as we now say goodbye to him, Honorable Speaker, my prayer is that the children of Ngugi will have peace, can come back to this country and contribute. And for all of us to make sure that Ngugi will not be forgotten for what he did to this country. May his soul.
Julia Sunguli.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to join everybody else in eulogizing Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He was definitely a literary giant in the 70s, and that is why a UK newspaper said about him when he was about 33 years that he is accepted as one of Africa's outstanding contemporary writers. His best books, Mr. Speaker, were the books that he wrote under the name of James Ngugi. The book of The River Between, A Grain of Wheat, and Weep Not Child. That is actually why the 70s would remember Ngugi. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, something happened to Ngugi later on. When the world was embracing him, he seems to have retreated from the world. First, he retreated from Christianity. He changed his name, James. He returned his baptismal card and retreated away from Christianity. Then, Mr. Speaker, he retreated from the English language, the one that had made him a giant, and started writing in Kikuyu and having characters only within the Kikuyu language and Kikuyu culture. That actually is perhaps one of the reasons why the people who went to school after the 70s do not remember Ngugi as much as you and I do. Mr. Speaker, he withdrew, of course, when he was detained by Jomo Kenyatta, he must have suffered a lot. President Moi released him as soon as he became president, and he immigrated into the West. But this does not take away from the fact that, Mr. Speaker, at one time, Ngugi was a prolific writer, an artist, a novelist we shall always remember, and we shall place his name in the records of history. I thank you.
Yes, Honorable Bayer.
Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you and wish to eulogize Ngugi wa Thiong'o. You know, Honorable Speaker, I'm a student of literature and having taught literature at different levels. But Honorable Speaker, I want to say that the late Ngugi wa Thiong'o will remember him for the African Writers Series as a pioneer of that book, that level of books, where many Africans got an opportunity not just to write, but to write and publish, where the African Writers Series was published then as one of the biggest publishing houses, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, secondly, I remember Ngugi wa Thiong'o for his book, Decolonizing the Mind, one of the greatest works of literature that he ever wrote. It is a series of papers that he put together Honorable Speaker, and it is in decolonizing the mind, Honorable Speaker, that we find Ngungi in his true sense. Honorable Speaker, one of his great books that people never talk about is The Devil on the Cross. The Devil on the Cross was one of Ngungi's greatest book. Actually, it is The Devil on the Cross that runs crosshair. He runs crosshairs with Daniel Arap Moi then when he was president, Honorable Speaker. Although Devil on the Cross is one of the greatest satires that Ngungi wa Thiong'o has ever written. A book that when you read, you get the revolutionary spirit in the writer. You get Ngungi wa Thiong'o, the person who fights for justice, who fights for land rights, a writer who stood up for the common mwananchi in this country. Ngungi wa Thiong'o will go down in history as one of the liberators of Africa, and that is why he could not agree with many presidents, and that's why he could not find space in Africa and chose to live in the United States. Honorable Speaker, we have lost a great man, a literary giant, somebody that was respected not just in the continent of Africa, but in Europe and above and beyond, Honorable Speaker. I thank you, and may God...
The Honorable Irene Mayaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to pay tribute to a very distinguished son of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, as had been said before, Ngungi wa Thiong'o was initially called James Thiong'o, and he decided to change his name and drop the English name so that he pays tribute to being an African. But Honorable Speaker, one of the things that I remember about Ngungi wa Thiong'o was a famous quote from one of his books that he used to say, to speak one's language is to celebrate one's identity. And he also said, but to impose a language is a way to divide people, and it is a practice of tribalism of another kind. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, the Ngungi wa Thiong'o was one of the very famous Kenyans who really spoke against tribalism. But the other thing, Honorable Speaker, that we also celebrate Ngungi wa Thiong'o for is in terms of receiving honors, he is one of the most decorated writers in Africa. He received a total of 38 documented awards, one of them being the UNESCO Award for Weep Not Child. But also between the year 2006 and 2007, through one of his books, The Wizard of Oz, Ngungi wa Thiong'o received a total of 6 international awards. That was really something that was exceptional. And Honorable Speaker, the same way that we normally say that we are going to benchmark with other people on the good practices and the good things that we do in Kenya, Ngungi wa Thiong'o is one of those people that we also really know that the rest of the world would want to also emulate and be like him. And I just want to tell especially the people who are here and the people who are listening to us who love soccer, that a team like Arsenal should now emulate Ngungi wa Thiong'o in terms of doing
The Honorable Member for Seme, Honorable Nyikar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I take this opportunity also eulogize passing on of our great writer Ngungi wa Thiong'o. His life, Madam Speaker, epitomizes the philosophical basis of life, the idealism that is associated with scholarship, the ability to actually strive and go against all odds to fight for ideal. Madam Speaker, this is what really distinguishes human beings from animals. Animals don't fight for ideals, but human beings fight for ideals, and sometimes they suffer like he suffered. They have to make sometimes very grave decisions at great risk to their lives because there is something they stand for, something they believe will make a difference in the life of the people and in the society. And this, he took his ability in writing to actually express this, agreed to fight with the system that be, to express what he wanted. So really, these really are the people who show to us the roles of universities. Universities are actually to be populated by people who seek ideals, not just the practicalities of life, that take time for most of us. So losing a person like him is a great loss to this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity.
The Honorable